So this is a topic we have quite often. It's just I don't think we've ever focused on it. So operations versus strategy. And when I was an engineer, I thought, man, those people in meetings, they really just don't get it. Like, oh, I'm glad I don't have to be in meetings. I'm glad I don't have to deal with them. And we are going to focus on how strategy is a component that we need to focus on as well as operations. And so with engineering, we have to say, let's move forward as an operational focus. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought there. And what I'm looking for is a way to show engineers that strategy isn't just planning out which PCs to use, but it's also this larger item of showing where are we going someday.
And this is so if you're technical, you may have a hard time really understanding this. So Adam, you and I were talking just yesterday or day before. We're talking about the integrations, and that's a complex deal. I understand how our tool is used today by our clients, and you were talking about things like, oh, it'd be great if we could do this, and we do this, and we can make our tool this, we can position our tool this way. And in the back of my mind, I'm trying to run through all the screens and the fields and the edits, and what it would take. And, it gets almost overwhelming from a engineering perspective. Like, this is just, wait, no, this is just not going to work. This is just not how it's done. And internally, I've had to learn, to kind of step back and go, okay, you need to listen. This is not what we're doing tomorrow, but this is where we're going next year. This is further down the road. We're going to build to this incrementally. It's not something that we're going to have to roll out at the first of next month. And that perspective on what we're doing operationally today and where the organization is going strategically long term can look drastically different. And here's the out on this. You don't have to be able to fill in the gap between the two. All right. You do, from an operational perspective, lots of times you do just need to focus on what you have to do today and what you're going to have to do next week, and build bit by bit. So you might not know what step 5 is in your process, but you do know what step 2 is. So do step 2. And somewhere along step 3, you'll probably start getting an idea of what step 5 is going to look like. And so, you have, and so this is very much from the operational perspective. Now, you have the strategy people that go way out there, and then you have these really talented people who can fit in between, and they can put the pieces in, and they can stand at step 2 and go, I know what this thing is going to look like at step 7. And those are really, really cool and amazing people. I like when I get a chance to work with those. I tend to be much more in the operational side. But what I've learned to do is to embrace the long-term vision, to understand that what I'm doing today is going to be different, and I need to be aware and understand where this train is heading, and what it's going to look like, 4 changes down the line, and what we're going to do, because I'll be able to contribute to that along the way.
Yeah, and I think everybody's getting a little bit of insight into how Skip and Adam's brains work a little differently. Because like while you're explaining, like okay, here's my next step I need to do. I'm thinking, oh, look, cool. That's the iterative process. We're going to slowly make it towards the end of where we're going. And sometimes I get myself in trouble because I'm thinking too much visionary and not enough integration and not enough like step by step, because I'll look at something, I'll say, hey, this is where we need to go. And then all of a sudden, like people within the company are like, oh, we can't get there. That's too, you have no idea how much work that is. I'm like,
Yes, yes,
well,
yeah, that's
I'm
it.
not asking this be done tomorrow. I'm looking at this being done in a 3-year plan. And then
Yeah,
all of a sudden, like you see everybody kind of relax,
yeah,
and it's like, I got to remember, I got to preface this like timeline. I'm thinking years. Operationally, usually I'm thinking days. Like, what
yes,
am I doing
yes.
today, tomorrow? Like, so we have our weekly stand-ups on Tuesdays, and or our planning meetings on Tuesdays, and we're thinking like, what are we going to do this next week? and how does it fit into the larger roles of what the organization is. So we have 90.io kind of tracks our rocks for an entire quarter. And at the end of the quarter, we determined, did we get what we needed done? And then the next quarter, we set up new rocks. And these rocks align with company goals that we'd like to get done by the end of the year. How much money do we want to be making by December? How many new clients do we want to have by then? What do these clients look like? And then, like, we can say, like, hey, we want 200 new clients by the end of the year, and we want them all to be class A clients.
Yep.
Okay, that's the vision. Now let's figure out, like, how are we going to get
How to
there?
do it.
What does that
Yeah.
look like? And so we start setting up smaller pieces and chunks, and then from there, like, okay, well, this quarter we're going to get 50 new class A clients, and then that quarter, go, how am I going to get them this quarter? Well, I'm going to aim for these style of companies which we've never aimed for before. I'm going to send personal emails, and I'm going to go to these 3 conferences, and I am going to run this campaign. And so then, like, during the day, like, how am I going to get to the conference? What plane am I going to get on?
Yeah.
And so this all breaks down, and that's strategic. Now, in
Yes.
operations, we
Yeah.
think we're doing strategic when we think, oh, I've got a switch I need to replace in 5 years. I'm going to go ahead and put something on my calendar for 5 years from now to remind
Yeah,
myself.
that's exactly right. We as engineers, we think that is strategic, and that's just good planning. That's not strategic.
That's best practice, man. That's best
That's
practice.
just being a good professional.
Yeah.
And the really important thing to understand here is both of these roles are critically important to successful organizations. And if you don't have that vision, you're going to just dry up and go nowhere. And if you don't have the operational side, it's just going to fall apart right underneath your feet. So you have to really work both of these, and they can't be um, adversarial. I'm sure we've all worked in organizations where the different departments and all were adversarial. That doesn't get us anywhere. We really have to work out and understand that we are working towards a vision. We are going to get there step by step, but the two have to communicate. The two have to link up and come up with a cohesive plan to work together.
And if you've ever been in a strategic meeting, like talking through a mission statement for your team, just for your team, let's say you have a team of 6 engineers in your MSP. Sit down in a room and tell me what drives you as a team. What is your goal? I'll bet you it takes you about 4 hours to agree on something.
Yep.
One sentence.
Once.
One
One.
sentence.
Yes.
You only have to do
Yes.
this once, and you don't have to do it again for another 5 years. And figure out what it is that your goal as a team is to accomplish. And I bet you it takes about 4 hours. It's hard. It's not easy. And so strategy takes time. And it feels like when strategy is done poorly, when like a strategy workshop is done poorly, it feels like a waste of time.
Hmm.
And it is, because you're sitting there working through these bullet points, and it's very, very, very micromanaged, and you don't have a strong leader up there helping guide the vision. It's just like, ugh. But if you get in a good strategy meeting, you'll get to the end, you're like, okay, well, what did we accomplish? We didn't get anything done today. And like, no, you got your vision set today, and you won't feel the fruits of that for months. And that's the difference. It's like with IT operational strategy, we make a decision in a meeting today, and we're making a difference by the end of the day. Like, you're seeing
Right.
results from that
Yes.
upgraded switch, or getting those tickets in so that you can get these things done. And it happens immediately. It's this dopamine burst. I immediately
Yeah.
get something done. Strategy, it's like, okay, I don't get to see the fruits of my labor for sometimes a year.
Yeah.
So, like, one of the things that we're undergoing right now is SOC audit, for instance.
Hmm.
We made the decision to start undergoing SOC audit. It's part of a larger vision, though. And so this SOC audit is a pain in my butt, but it's an operational item. So people may think it's strategy. It's not strategy, but it is operational. But we made this decision because of a larger strategic item to
Yeah.
create better documentation, to create a better flowing system that is more secure, and the SOC audit is just a part of that. And it's great, and we love it, but I won't see the fruits of this SOC certification and everything that we're gaining from that, which we are gaining a lot from it. It's fantastic. And we're not going to see the fruits of that probably until 2023.
Yeah.
Like, we'll put our happy little badge on the site and people are like, cool, we're SOC certified.
Yeah.
But we won't actually see some of the fruits of that until next year. And, that's for anybody who's been through a SOC audit, it's a very expensive and it's a lot of work. But why would you do it if you weren't required to do it? Well, there's many reasons to do it. And
Yeah.
from a strategic standpoint, it's fitting into that larger piece of a puzzle
Yeah.
of having a world class and next level experience for our users.
Yeah, it's where we need to be. It's not where we are today, and it's where we want to be. And we understand that journey is a little bit longer. And I think you've brought up something that, again, kind of talking to our technical community. If you're sitting in a meeting and you're talking with your peers or just your coworkers, and you talk about items and you have a switch that needs to be upgraded, and someone's looking at that and go, I can take that on. I mean, I've worked with countless engineers through varying degrees of technical competence, and there's many times when we've handed out tasks and we're like, I don't know if that's going to get done or not. They're going to need help. I'm gonna make sure I have another engineer available. Or there are engineers that we've slid a mountain of to dos across the table to them, and they look at it and go, okay, next Thursday. And you're like, that's done. I mean, get out the chisel and stone. It's already done. And that is an engineering operational competence that we can see because it is very quick. But the challenge you have in this, when you're talking about strategy and you're handing things off to your visionaries, it takes a while, and you have to have some faith. You have to have some confidence in those. And it's much harder to realize that. And from, I guess, an engineering technical perspective, sometimes it's harder for us to get behind that strategy and that visionary because we're so used to yes, that was in a box last week and today it's in the rack and it's running. And that quick term connection provides a level of competency. With the strategy, it is much, in my perspective, it is much harder. Maybe for other people it's easier to discern that, but for me it's harder to do that, and it takes a little while for me to build up that faith and that trust in where we're going. But once that happens, it's a pretty cool dynamic because I can set out with my operational stuff and start breaking these things down, confident in knowing that, hey, we're going to get to this vision. We're going to get to where we want to be, and that is a cool experience.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest problems that you mentioned it right there was trust. So an engineer has to trust that their strategic people know what they're doing, that there's a reason why we're going this direction as a company. It may not make much sense right now. Now it's on the strategic leaders to try to get it to make sense to the operational staff, because if you win that loyalty and you get that trust, your operational staff are going to work that much harder. But until you see that first, like, oh my gosh, this happened. Wow, that's really cool. Oh, everything came together. Now you start trusting the visionary leadership. But so as visionaries, you have to prove it. You have to give them those aha moments where suddenly we have a bunch of new clients because of something we started doing a year ago. Um, at Managed Services Platform, we released a new dashboard in November last year, and it wasn't an instant grab for a bunch of new clients. It was a slow and steady
Yes. Yeah.
upgrade. Like people started talking about, oh man, this thing really works. And it might be a year before people really start buying into this. Oh wow, this really works. This is something that's really good. And they start telling their friends about it. And then we start getting more and more referrals. And all of a sudden, hey, that was a great move. But we
Mm-hmm.
didn't know right away. And these are strategic items that we always have to think about. Now, some people get too lost in strategy and they don't actually ever do anything. And those are the people that engineers hate the most.
That they are.
They're
Yep.
always the head in the clouds. They're always planning about the newest, greatest thing that they're going to get done someday, and nothing ever happens. So there's that trust that needs to happen where the people at the top or at the strategic levels need to trust that their engineers and operations are going to do this thing and be able to accomplish it. And the
Yep.
people in operations need to be able to look at the strategic people and say, oh, they have a great direction. They're great visionaries. They know where this company is going.
Yep.
And when you have that nice matchup, that's when you see cool things happen.
Yep. And it is interesting that that relationship that comes down, so when you have the strategic element, and when those people understand that they're bought in, that they believe in what they're doing, but they turn around and they realize that it's going to be perhaps complicated. It's going to be perhaps really hard to get to this place that they're looking at, and they provide that understanding and trust to their engineering people that they're going to be able to solve the problems without saying, oh yeah, it's easy, you'll figure it out, it's just click next, 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 right? And for them to be able to appreciate, even if they don't understand it all, but to be able to appreciate the amount of work that goes into that, those are those relationships that really start to develop, and they collaborate, and they make iterative processes like you were talking about, Adam, and they get to these visionary goals step by step, milestone by milestone. So, maybe if you've got one of those, people in your organization, you're really struggling to see, where they're going. This is, unfortunately, it doesn't work out for everything, but sometimes it's really cool to roll the calendar back. And, sometimes we just have to look at memory if we don't have a good system that we're kind of capturing some of these strategic elements with. If you don't have like, a great platform like managed services platform that would help you do that. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
nice
if
plug.
you're yeah, if you're having to just kind of go from whatever resources you have, but scroll back a few years and see where these strategic people were saying we needed to be in 2021, 2022. Obviously a lot happened that no one could really see in 2020 and 2022 or 21. So that derailed a lot of plans. But how close were they? And did they hit it just smack dab on the spot? Day one, dollar amount exactly? No, they didn't. But were they close? And is your organization better for at least trying to move down that path? And when you can kind of look back and see that, if you have that, if your organization has a bit of that history, those are really cool because those can help quickly build that confidence as to where your strategic leaders are trying to take the organization.
Yeah, and you gotta earn a bit of that.
Hmm.
So I've worked under people like they expect respect. They expect you to fall in line. Those are your hierarchical organizations. I do not do well in those people, just FYI. Um,
Well,
you have to earn my respect. I am respectful, but
there you go.
the trust level and stuff I've over time it has gotten eroded by really bad managers
Yeah.
and some really great managers which have shown me like wow I really need to trust this person. But I've had some pretty bad relationships, and I could go on and on about like, oh, they hurt me. I'll never trust again.
Yep.
You remember your employees have these too. We all have these, like where we were under bad leadership at some point, and you learn just to be self sufficient. I'm a Gen Xer. Come on, guys. That's what we did. We self
Yeah.
sufficiency at its max, but earning that trust and then managing it is something that happens over time, and being able to show as a visionary, being able to show that things don't just cherry pick, show your failures, show your successes, say, hey, here's a vision we had back in 2019, it didn't come true, here are the reasons why. Cool. Visionaries fail too. It's just like an operational person. Sometimes you intend to install this firewall and all goes to hell, and it happens. But you find your way out of it and you redo it, and it gets restructured on the fly, and you came up with a new architecture in the moment. With a visionary, they fail too. So when you're talking to your operational folks, show them here's something we created, here's what worked, here's what didn't work. And so those are your
Mhm.
strategic reviews. So we talk about that with our members all the time is, make sure you see where you've been and where you're going. And that's a key part of like QBRs and annual business reviews and things like where have you been, where are you going? And as a visionary, when you're trying to win over your operational staff, say, where are you going? Now, as from an operational staff, you have to be able to show Did you get things done? Were you able to feed the visionary um, reliable timelines?
Hmm.
Hey, I can get this firewall installed in 3 weeks. Will that fit your timeline? The visionary may say, okay, so we want to do that major architecture rollout by 2023. That puts us back like a month, but it's on them to adjust timelines so that it fits the operation staff. So, like, okay, so our goal was 2023 for this to be done. Let's do mid 2023 to give ourselves some breathing room. And that's where you start working together for strategy so that people aren't getting to the end of the year and feeling crunched. And you know, you have a bad visionary when you get to the end of every year and you feel like you've accomplished nothing.
Yeah.
It was just one firefight after another. And that's when you know you're being led by an integrator. And integrators are really good at managing operations, making sure that tickets are getting accomplished, making sure that you're stepping forward in life and that you're getting things done, but you're not going anywhere.
Right. Yeah. You got a lot of steps, and you're hitting the steps, but you're just walking in circles. And that's, we want to go somewhere with this. And I guess speaking from the strategy perspective, or to the strategy builders and organizations, communication really is key. Your organization, you can overwhelm them easily, so you got to be careful, but being able to clearly and honestly communicate where you're going with an organization is really going to provide a lot of value. I worked with a large corporate entity for many years, and I think they had a really, really good mid-level management. Senior, they were more senior executives, but maybe not in the top C-suite. And I feel, and again, a lot of this is perspective, but I feel that that mid-level management, those divisional vice presidents and such, did a good job of casting the vision of where we needed to go as a smaller organization, as a division within the bigger body, and that worked out good. But eventually, things just got really frustrating because we had all of these corporate mandates, so to speak. And we're like, where is this going? Why are we doing this? This is pointless. And we saw no vision in why we were doing some of these things. And ultimately, I mean, it worked down, the ultimate vision of this large corporate company was to be bought. All right. And that's not bad, but that the value of that was never really communicated out to the organization. Why would it benefit? Did it benefit just the key CEOs and some stakeholders or shareholders in the organization? Yes, it did, and that's their right to get that benefit. I'm not dissing that at
Risk
all,
and
but
reward, man.
absolutely, absolutely. But they really expected a level of performance without any expectation of vision to where this was going. And so, it was a difficult process. And at the end, you know, I know a lot of the contributors, the individual contributors that we were down, that we felt disappointed when this organization reached its goal, and they're having all of these parties and sending out all these, celebratory sort of messages and everything. And we're like, okay, we've arrived. I didn't know this is where we were going. Sort of methodology, and that, I don't know, that kind of burns. So you need to clearly communicate your vision. It
Yeah.
obviously the steps, and we're never going to be 100% accurate, but communication from a strategic level down to the organization is just so important.
Oh yeah, and that's why I've and Skip both in our meetings with members is we've emphasized if you can get your client's business goal from them or their
Yes.
annual goal from them, things will go so much better.
Yes.
And because you can align with it. When everybody is on a boat and they know where the boat is going, they can all be on the lookout for, hey, here's a shortcut. Here is a way to get the engines to work better. Here, they can all be solving the problem of how to get to the destination together. If only the captain knows where you're going, then only they get to solve the problems and the boat will just run. But imagine if everybody on the boat was trying to get you to the destination. So, and whether or not you want to inspire people, maybe it's your goal is to get bought out. Okay, cool. If you say that to your entire staff, what's their motivation
Yeah.
to get bought out. Does that mean they lose their jobs? That's a really bad incentive for a lot of these people.
It is.
Are you employee owned? And so if you're employee owned, oh, now you've got an insane incentive. What? We get to be millionaires at the end of this? Cool. Um, I will work my butt off for you. Anyways, you go down the list. What are the incentives for your operational people that are within your vision? So if your goal is to get bought out, maybe it's like upon purchase, all employees get X bonus, or there's some kind of
Right.
B share incentive or whatever it is. Now, from an employee perspective, it's good for you to know, like, where is your company going, and what a red flag for you as an employee, or even when you're interviewing with a company, ask them, what is the mission of your company?
Hmm.
And is it something that you are comfortable upholding? And if that's true, then, oh, awesome. You'll
Yeah.
be more inspired to come to work every day, especially on the crappy days. And then from the leadership standpoint, you have to tie that to their personal goals, and you have to hire people in the seat that fits. So not just a talent set, but a culture fit. And if you don't
Hmm.
have a culture, if you can't say, like, clearly, what is your goal? If your goal is, hey, I'm going to make more money. Awesome. How are you going to do that? You need to be able to answer these questions so that your employees can feel inspired. And that's strategy. So operations is, how do we get there? Strategy is, where are we going?
Yep.
If you really
Because
want to hear it in a
ideally,
nutshell.
yeah, ideally, you want to be able to, randomly pick employees out of your organization, anybody who's been there for, a little bit and has a good feel for the organization, and to be able to put them under the gun and say, where's this organization going to be in 3 years? What is this organization going to be doing? What are your opportunities going to be in front of you personally in a 1, 3, 5 year, some sort of lengthy time frame? And ideally, you want your employees to be able to say, hey, we're going to be part of a bigger organization, or hey, we're all going to be on the beach, celebrate. Whatever it is, they know what the goal is. Now, they may turn right around and go, I have no idea how we're going to get there, but I'm confident that we are. I believe that we're going to be able to do that. And if you can get that sort of scenario in an organization, then I would say you're casting strategy well. And when you do that, then your operational team can come back and start the very sometimes nitty gritty elements that need to happen to get to that great visionary
Yeah.
place that you're shooting for.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to wrap up. Getting everybody on that boat and getting them in line. And my biggest probably aha moment as an engineer in operations was when I realized that operations wasn't what I loved about IT. It was the strategy. And when I,
Mm.
I had that aha moment over a decade ago, I realized that it wasn't fixing the computer that I loved. It was creating strategy and seeing strategy come to fruition. And I loved that. Again, it to sum up this entire podcast, operations is how we're getting there. Strategy is, where are we going? And if you can get everybody on that journey together to where we're getting there efficiently, as well as we know where we're going, everybody is going to have a great time getting there. All right,
There we go.
man. Thanks for coming on today. We've got
You
another
bet.
exciting couple episodes coming up. So we'll see everybody next week.
Thanks.